Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Phelan Dale once again with my pre-trip series for the Volvo VNL and Utility 3000R. In the last episode, we went over the engine compartment. In this episode, we're going to cover the exterior of the truck. And then in the following episodes, we'll be going over the trailer. That'll be episode 3, and episode 4 will be the interior cab inspection. So stay tuned and let's go ahead and get started. Okay everyone, first and foremost, I hope that the wind is not blowing into the mic too much during this. However, wintertime and Colorado, wind is a thing. One of the most important aspects of your entire exterior inspection, no matter what you're doing, is you're always keeping an eye on the general condition of everything around you. So no matter what you're looking at or how fine focused you are on any particular parts, you're going to be looking at the general condition of the body of the vehicle. So you want to make sure that you're looking for any visible damage regardless of what parts you're looking at. Always make sure that you use your peripheral vision. Trust your gut instinct as well. If anything looks like it might be slightly wrong, it might be slightly wrong. It might even be major. So you always want to check with your mechanic on it. Don't take any chances. If you see anything that even looks slightly out of place, go ahead and take a look. If you're in doubt, consult your mechanics. Your mechanics would rather you ask them questions than to avoid and end up with a worse problem later on. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is the general body condition of the vehicle. We want to look at everything all along the side. We want to make sure that we're looking top to bottom, left to right. Make sure we're looking for any damage to the body of the vehicle, any parts that might be out of place, anything that might be missing that's obvious. You'll get to know your truck. You'll get to know what is supposed to be present and what's not supposed to be present. You're looking at mirrors, you're looking at brackets, you're looking at trim. Even the trim is important. You're looking at all your seams, all your connections, your side skirts, the general wall of the truck, your windows, anything, your flaring. You're looking at everything you possibly can to take in for general condition of the outside of the truck. You also want to look at any and all windows. This includes the windshield, your driver's side window, and if you have them, your sleeper windows as well, which if you're in a Volvo VNL, you're going to have sleeper windows. While I'm over here, I'm taking a look at any mirror brackets that are on the outside of my vehicle. You generally have hood mirrors. Some trucks don't, so if you don't worry about these. But if you do have them, you want to make sure that they are securely attached to the truck. You want to make sure that they are not loose, and you want to make sure that your mirror adjustments are in a way to where you catch all the blind spots. The whole purpose of these bonnet mirrors or hood mirrors, however you want to call them, a lot of us call them bonnet mirrors because this is technically a bonnet. The whole purpose of this is to see your blind spots. You want to be able to see anything that's in this particular area. The other great use to these mirrors is when you're going around a tight corner, a lot of times the convex mirrors on your side mirror will still lose track of your tandems as you're coming around a tight corner. But these mirrors tend to pick that up, so you can use these mirrors to go around a tight corner safely. All right, so the mirrors look good. The brackets are secure. Don't be afraid to get up as long as you're using 3 points of contact. If you do need to climb like this, 3 points of contact at all times. Everything looks secure. If you have antennas, make sure that those are secure as well. The mirrors are not cracked or broken. Casing is good. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check the door. The outside of the door looks good. I don't see any gaps. I don't see any bends where it may have looked like somebody tried to break in. Door is locked because safety. By the way, always keep the key on you when you're doing your pre-trip inspection. Even if your engine is running for some reason, you want to keep your doors locked. This is why I carry a minimum of 2 keys with me at all times. If I step away from the door and I'm having to crawl under here and do any inspections underneath the back of the truck or the trailer, I always want the door locked. I don't want somebody getting in here and tampering with or moving this vehicle while I'm doing the inspection. I keep one of these. These are great. I'll link it on Amazon, but this is a retractable key ring, and that way I can easily have my key handy at all times, get it out, unlock my door. Whenever I go to close the door, I lock it and move on. Doesn't take any time to do. Is that so hard? No, safety first. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and check the door. What I'm looking for, I'm making sure that the seals are good. I'm making sure that there's no damage to the inside or outside of the door. I'm going to check the switches. I'm gonna check my handle. I'm gonna make sure that the defroster vent is lined up. I usually bring the door kind of here and I can tell whether the defroster vent is lining up properly. And you want to make sure that when you close the door that it's secure. Now obviously, and I see people do this all the time, well, I'm gonna kind of pull on the handle and see if it's secure. You're not really doing that, because if you're pulling hard enough, you're just gonna open the door anyway. Reach underneath the bottom, even use two hands if you need to, and kind of just pull on it. That is how you make sure your door is secure. You're also wanting to look at the hinges and make sure that the hinges are good and that your door seals are not cracked, breaking, or missing. Below the door, I'm looking at the steps. I want to make sure that the steps are clear of obstacles and that they are securely attached. You never want anything attached to these steps, with the exception of, and I've seen people do this, some people do get mats and things like that that are meant to scrape your feet on. If it's designed to go on a step and it is acceptable and designed by the manufacturer to go on a step of a truck, you can use it as long as you are using it per instruction and per the FMCSA standards. However, if you have decoration, I see people like put little dolls or Muppets or I don't know, whatever. They put like little decorations on the steps. That is a no-no. If it's not designed to be stepped on and it's not designed for traction, you cannot have it on the steps of your truck. So that needs to be off of there and it needs to be securely attached. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna look at is the battery compartment. And this is the point where I tend to want to get my gloves, put them on. These Atlas gloves, again, I think I went over them in the last episode, but I'll go ahead and throw a link right here if you want to take a look at these things. These gloves are outstanding for pre-trip and they fit like a glove. All right, so the side skirt. There's handles on the side here. If you're using the Volvos, you pull slightly upward and out and down. While I'm checking this compartment, I'm kind of checking the side skirt. I want to make sure that the hinges are good and that all parts are securely attached. There's also these ropes right here. I want to make sure that they're hooked, they're in good condition, and that they're able to hold the side skirt securely when the side skirt is in the open position. Battery compartment. I'm looking at the batteries. I want to see the condition of the batteries. Is there bulging? Is there a rotten egg smell? Don't be afraid to use your senses. If you're getting a rotten egg smell from your truck, that's your batteries. That's a bad battery, and that is no good at all. You do not want to have a bad battery under your truck, especially in a compartment like this. It's sitting right under your seat. You sit right here. If a battery gets too bad, it can actually explode. That would not be good considering the proximity, so you do not want that. Make sure that all cables and connectors are secure. As you can see, there's connectors laying all over the batteries. That is okay, as long as the posts are clear and everything is connected as it's supposed to be. Also, underneath, there is a battery cutoff switch. Make sure that it is in good condition and operable. Okay, so the cables are good, no frays, no cuts, but we have something else under here. Underneath the battery compartment, we have our air tanks, our primary air tanks. We want to make sure that those are in good condition, make sure that there's no cracks, no breaks, they're securely mounted. Also, if you have valves, release valves that you can open up to drain the moisture, don't be afraid to do so, especially in the winter time. You want to be able to drain the moisture from those tanks. You don't want moisture in your air. All right, While I'm down here, I'm also not afraid to go ahead and look at the frame of the truck here, all right? Because this is yet another angle we can see underneath the truck. And I can also look at the bottom of the cab of the truck, looking for any damage or anything that might be going on up there. So everything is good there. And the last thing I'm going to check before I close this compartment up, my DEF tank is right here. I want to make sure my DEF tank is securely mounted. I want to make sure that the cap is good. I want to make sure that the gasket seal on the cap is present and accounted for, and that the cap secures tightly onto the DEF tank. By the way, DEF is short for diesel exhaust fluid. Got the label here. It says DEF only. You only want DEF in this tank. It looks like it's securely mounted. No cracks, no breaks, no leaks. All lines are attached and look in good condition. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this. Sometimes these can be tricky to shut. I like to lean in on the front side first. That is secure. Let's get the back. And it is secure. You want to make sure that it is not loose or rattling around. You want to make sure that it is safe to step on. Usually what I do is, especially since I got gloves, I'll put my fingers into the top step and I'll tug out really hard. You don't want to tug hard on this because you could actually break this plastic. So use the step to make sure that the side skirt is securely attached to the vehicle. Look at the bottom of the side skirt. If you have flanges down here, make sure that they are secure and not going to pose a danger to the public around you if they fly off while you're driving. And then get down here, you want to look underneath the vehicle. Lift up the flange. These flanges these flanges are flexible, so you can get down here and look at the bottom of the air tanks. I can see the bottom of the DEF tank, the emissions across from me, and I can see my fuel tanks as well. So don't be afraid to lift up these flanges to take a look underneath the bottom of your vehicle. Make sure your DEF door is able to open and close securely, and it snaps in place. It should snap when you shut it. All right. The next thing I'm going to look at, since it's right here where I'm standing, my stickers. Obviously, I've got stickers on here that are cosmetic and passive message that I believe in. You're allowed to put those on the truck as long as they are not overlapping or too close to regulatory stickers. These are just fine. If you have hazmat placards anywhere on your vehicle, you want to make sure that any other cosmetic stickers or company labels are at a minimum of 6 inches away from the placard. Placards cannot be within 6 inches of these. In this case, this is all fine. What I do want to check for though, what is regulated, my IFTA stickers. You have to have your IFTA stickers displaying on the outside of the vehicle. So to make sure that they are present, and make sure you have one for the current year that you are driving for. In this case, I have my 21. I'm shooting this video in 2021, and so this is just fine. This is valid until the end of December. January, I'll be putting my 22s on here. My drayage truck registry, valid through 2022. I want to make sure that that's present and accounted for. I also want to make sure that any decaling that shows my US DOT and my regulatory FMCSA stickers are present and accounted for as well, and that they're not peeling off. That is a requirement. You have to display these. They have to be in good condition, and they cannot be falling off the vehicle. Same with your company logo. The company logo, a lot of people think is just for advertising the company. It's not. It's actually a regulation. You have to have your company name in a readable font on the outside of your vehicle, and it usually has the company name and where it's from. The where it's from is not necessarily as required as company name and your DOT and EMC numbers. So make sure that those are in good condition. I'm also going to take a look at my lights while I'm here. As you saw in the last video, remember I went over the light test and showed you a little bit about the light testing of the vehicle. And I'm also going to go over that one more time in the last video just to make sure that we review that. But we want to make sure that the light is securely attached. It's not cracked, it's not broken, it is amber in color. This is a blinker. So if I had the light test going, I would be making sure that the blinker is working as well. I'll look up and down. There's no other lights on this side of the truck, so that concludes it for the lights. There's really only one light on this particular truck that I'm looking at. So the next thing I'm gonna do is look at the storage compartment. I open the door and there's a little key ring in here that I pull and it releases the door. It's kind of tricky because you have to lift up on the door at the same time that you're pulling it. So you're gonna be doing these stretches when you're opening these. So I'm gonna make sure that my storage compartment is safe. I'm gonna make sure that I have fluids for my trip. I have oil in here, I have coolant, I have treatment. Trash bags are not required, but they're in here. Have my kingpin lock. I have chains. I have a fuel filter. I have air filters for my interior. I want to make sure that any of my electrical compartment, I have an inverter in here. So I want to make sure that there's no clutter, trash, or anything in the inverter area because that can cause a fire. So that's clear. And I have all tools and safety items necessary for the road. Also, while I'm here, I'm gonna check my safety triangles because this is where they're stored. How many do you have? Remember, the minimum is 3 safety triangles in good and operable condition. So I'm gonna get my leaf blower out of the way. All right, so I could do this right up here. I'm just gonna open up the case real quick, check my triangles. They're good. When you check your triangles, I'm only gonna check one for the purpose of this video, but for the triangles, you wanna make sure that they fold out. Now, if you're doing this on your own without watching the video, you wanna make sure that you watch all 3. A lot of these triangles work pretty much the same way. So they just kind of fold together here at the top, and then there's a little latch, and then this folds out like this. These are what you set up on the road when you have a breakdown. So many drivers don't set these up for some reason. And the ones that do don't remember that the 500-foot rule is in place, but all right, they go in there. So 3 triangles, all good and accounted for. Now, by the way, if you're a student doing your CDL test, when you verbalize this, you verbalize it during your in-cab inspection. However, in reality, you check them when you get to them. Most of the time, they're under your bunk. So you want to check them when you're doing that part of your pre-trip inspection. And there you go. My triangles are secure. Okay, I carry these little tiny bolt cutters just in case I need to get into a seal. They come in handy. And you probably ask why I'm carrying 2 of these big bolt cutters. I'm actually not. If you notice the tip on those, these are meant to cut bolts. This particular one has a head that's specifically designed to cut the wire cables. If you have those cable seals, that's what this tool is for. Leaf blower for cleaning out your trailer. Why use a push broom? Come on, just blow the stuff out. Don't forget to sweep it up off the ground afterward though, be respectful. 5th wheel puller handle. Even if you have an automated air 5th wheel, you want to be able to carry one of these. All right, so now everything is secure. So I'm going to close the door and I'm going to make sure it's secure. By the way, when you're checking your door, look at the hinges. I glanced up when I was getting in there. Make sure that your hinges are in good order as well. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk back here, make sure that the catwalk is clear of any clutter or anything that does not belong here. I wanna make sure that any and all catwalk plates are secure to my vehicle. I wanna make sure that the steps are secure and tight to the vehicle. I wanna make sure that the side panel is secure and tight to the vehicle. I'm checking the rear flanges, make sure that they're attached, make sure that any handles are good to go. I want to go ahead and check my fuel tanks. I'll lean down, make sure that the brackets are secure and there's no missing nuts or bolts. I want to check the fuel cap. Make sure that the rubber gaskets are present and accounted for. Otherwise, whenever the fuel sloshes in the tank, it will leak through the threads. You don't want that. That's a big waste of fuel and can get costly. Make sure that any sensors, by the way, this orange bit is the extension cord going to my shore power, so that's not included here. Well, you do want to make sure that these connectors are secure. Make sure that any hoses or lines that are attached, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and sensors do not have any exposed wiring, and you should be good to go there. I'm also going to look underneath the cabin, There's airbags under here, and I want to make sure that the airbags are good to go. There's no leaks, there's no tears. Those are important for the suspension of the cab. And also while I'm down here, I'll look up and down the frame of the vehicle to make sure that it is good to go as well. And don't forget, on the frame, we're looking for no illegal welds, no illegal modifications. Remember, we can't modify the frame of the truck at all. That's a big no-no. That's one of the off-limits items for modifications on a truck. Just looking for anything out of the ordinary, tweaks, bends, twists. It's the chassis of your truck. It's the building block of the entire truck, so it's crucial to look at as much as you can during this entire inspection process. Also, on your spring hangers, you want to make sure that they are good to go on the springs. Make sure there's no damage to the springs. Make sure that the hooks are on there good, and make sure that the slides on the bar are able to slide back and forth. That way, as you're making tighter and tighter turns, it has the flexibility to let your lines do what they need to do without going beyond their limits and pulling them off the trailer. Also, you want to make sure that your lines clear the catwalk. Your lines should never come down below the surface of the catwalk. Some trucks, they don't have these side steps here. It's a big opening and people let their lines hang down. The problem is we got all these nuts and bolts on the frame. This will catch onto the frame and end up just ripping the lines right out of your trailer. You absolutely do not want that. And most importantly, this is probably the most crucial part of the pre-trip inspection. Check your satellite dish to make sure that your DirecTV is good to go when you're on the road. Securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. I'm kidding on the most important part, obviously, but that is an item that's attached to the truck. If it's attached to your truck, guess what? It becomes part of your pre-trip. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and climb up here, and I'm going to make sure that I have all supports attached securely to the vehicle. I'll check the exhaust, make sure that it is securely attached, no missing nuts, no missing bolts, no evidence of leaks, no evidence of soot, no rusting in the seams that would also be indicative of damage. I want to check my load lights, make sure that they are in good working order, they're attached securely and not coming loose. Make sure that any grab handles are securely attached to the truck. Make sure that there's no missing nuts or bolts there as well, no damage. Check the inside of the flanges for any damage. Load lock holders, make sure that those are securely attached to the vehicle, not falling off. And if you have load locks, it's a good idea to check those too. Make sure they're in good working order. Generally, you want to carry a minimum of 4 load locks with you at all times. In this case, I'm down to 2 because I used a couple on this trip. The next time I go back to the terminal, I'll go ahead and grab 2 more and put them in here. Check your airlines. Make sure that your airlines are good to go. Make sure that they are securely attached at both ends. No abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks on the airline. No abrasions or exposed wiring or any damage to the electrical line. Make sure that they are securely attached to the trailer and that the seals are good. While I'm on the catwalk, I'll also go ahead and inspect down on the drive shaft. I'm going to check the U-joints and make sure that those are clear of any obstruction. Make sure there's nothing jammed into those U-joints. That can cause a serious problem. Make sure that the drive shaft is in good order. I'm looking through the catwalk to check the entire length of the drive shaft right into the differential and make sure that those are good to go. It's not bent, it's not cracked, and that the U-joints on both ends are in working order. Also, right here in the center of the catwalk is a good angle to look down into the center area of the frame of the truck and make sure that the frame is not damaged, no illegal modifications, no welds, no missing nuts or bolts or parts. Make sure it's not cracked, tweaked, or broken. I can look up and down the entire length up to the engine compartment from here. And any air lines, any hydraulic lines, any other lines that might be in your sight at this point, you also want to make sure that those are secure, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks as well. I'll also look at both my mud guards, make sure that they are securely attached, not coming loose. Make sure that the top guards are not coming loose. All right, everything looks good up here. Now, while I'm up here, I'll go ahead and check my reefer. However, we're not going to cover that in this vehicle. We're focusing on the truck right now. So we'll cover the reefer in the next step. If I was at this point, this is where I would do my reefer inspection that you're going to see in the next video. 3 points of contact coming up and down at all times. And by the way, if you have an APU on your vehicle, you also want to check that as well while you're up there. Now, while I'm down here, I want to go ahead and double check these lines. However, you should not forget to release your trailer brake when you do this. If you don't release the air brakes, when you go to check these lines, you're going to get a face full of air. So I want to check these seals. I want to make sure they're in good condition. I want to make sure the gland hand holders are secure. Make sure there's no damage to the joints. And when you put it back on, you want to make sure it attaches securely, the seals match up, and that it is able to hold air with no leaks. Service line up, see, right here, the service line. It's coming out right here. So you want to make sure that you can pull this out. I gotta take my glove off to do this one because I need a fingernail. There we go. The seal's not damaged. It's just sometimes when you twist these on, they kind of get folded in, and that can cause a leak. It doesn't always, but it can. And that's why you should always be careful how you put it on. You match it up and then twist it. I'll also lean down here and catch another angle on the cross members, the torque arms, anything that is in my sight. I want to make sure there's no damage to any hoses or lines that I see, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and that they're securely attached. Look for anything out of the ordinary. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hop back behind the truck here. One of the things that I'll check for immediately if I have a trailer is the fact that I just got under here. That tells me something right away. That tells me that I have sufficient clearance between the mud flap and the landing gear. This is actually a little bit far back for my fifth wheel. I could probably stand to actually slide my fifth wheel forward a little bit for a little better balance, and I'll probably do that when I take off on this next trip. But the important part is you should always have at least a shoulder width between this mud flap and the landing gear. If you do not have this much space right here, you're going to damage your mud flap or the trailer or even the tires. You'll do a lot of damage when you go to make a turn. Remember, if you have sliding fifth wheels, this is a concern. If you have a fixed fifth wheel, guess what? It's still a concern. That's right. The reason why not all trailers are designed for all trucks. This is actually a fact. I have actually encountered it myself. Pup trailers, for instance. Pup trailers were meant for fifth wheels that are further back. If you are using a fifth wheel that's in a center to forward position and you hook a standard tractor up to a pup trailer, you're going to destroy the rear end of your truck. It's just a given. That's how short those pup trailers are. Pup trailers are meant for the fifth wheel to be further back. Generally, they're meant for single axle day cab trucks or dollies. So that's why they're like that. So if you get a pup trailer, you end up usually having to slide your fifth wheel all the way back in order to tow it with a regular truck. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and look at any lights or reflectors. Reflectors need to be red and white. For your tape, your DLT tape, any physical reflectors back here need to be either white or red as well. They need to be good, secure, not cracked, not broken, not falling out the vehicle. The lights themselves need to be working good. Brake lights and tail lights need to be red in color. If you have a backup light like I do, it needs to be clear. On the splash guards, aka mud flaps, whatever you want to call them, you want to make sure that they are securely attached. Make sure that make sure that all nuts and bolts are present. Make sure that the splash guard has sufficient clearance from the ground. In this case, I actually have no air in the airbags, so the rear end is down a little bit, but you can still tell that when I get air in the airbags, I will have sufficient clearance on the splash guards from the ground. I also want to take a look at the frame itself and the cross members back here, as well as the stabilization and torque arms. I want to make sure that everything is in order. There's also a lot of hoses back here, guys. There are a ton of them. You may not know what all of them do, but there is still one thing that you do want to do at all times. Make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and that they are securely attached. And if there's any damage to any hoses, regardless of whether you know what they do or not, report it to your mechanic. Everything is good to go. No tweaks, no bends, no illegal welds in the frame. Everything that is attached to the frame is attached securely with all nuts and bolts present and accounted for. While I'm under here, I also kind of eyeball my fifth wheel to make sure that the trailer coupling system is good. I'm not going to word that right now though. I'm going to go ahead and go over that in the next video. Generally what I do is kind of an S form, okay? I check the truck down to this point where I'm at now, and then once I get done checking my axles and everything, which we're going to do in just a moment, I'll check the coupling system and then slide out and go forward and check the lines and start checking the trailer. It's all about form, guys. Be efficient. You don't want to make more work on yourselves. If you're following a checklist, don't worry about the order of the checklist. Worry about getting a smooth flow going, getting to know your truck, and then going from one end to the other as if you're reading a book. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get under here. I'm going to check the spring mounts. I want to make sure that the spring mounts are in good order. There's none missing, none cracked, none broken, and that there's no scissoring. And they should also be properly mounted to the spring hangers. I'm also looking at the U-bolts. I want to make sure that the U-bolts are securely attached. There's no missing nuts or bolts. They are not cracked, they are not broken. My shock absorbers. I want to make sure that my shock absorbers, which are kind of hard to see from here. All right, much better view right here. So the shock absorbers, I want to make sure that there's no cracks, no bends, no leaks. They are securely mounted. I want to make sure that my bushings are in good order. They're not cracked. There's no dry rot. And I want to make sure that they have no like bends or dents in them like they've been smashed in. The airbags, I want to make sure that they are in good working order. I want to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. Now, again, remember when I talked about the sidewall? Your airbags are going to look kind of bulgy as well. That's the natural shape. I'm talking about abnormal bulges, like in one little spot, there's like a little bubble sticking out or something like that. That's what you're looking for. Make sure that there's no tears in the airbag, and also listen for any audible leaks. In this case, I have no air in the airbags, so the proper procedure for me to do, start the truck for a few moments, get air in the airbags, get up to 120 PSI, shut the truck off, come back and listen for my leaks. As a matter of fact, just this last trip, I had to DVIR a trailer that I heard the air leak on the airbag when I was under there checking stuff out. So always listen for that stuff. If you hear a leak, take the glove off your hand, feel around and see if you can feel where the leak's coming from so that you can let the mechanic know exactly where the leak is coming from if possible. So I'm going to get back under here. I'm going to check my brake systems. I want to look at the brake hoses, make sure that they are securely mounted. No abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. They are good to go at both ends. Look as far as you can up the hose. See if there's any damage of any sort, any cracks, any splits. Listen for any leaks. The brake chamber is in good working order. You want to make sure that it is securely mounted, has no missing brackets, no missing nuts or bolts, no damage. Slack adjuster and push rod, 90-degree position. Make sure no more than 1 inch of play. We already discussed a procedure for that in the last episode, so if you need to review on that, go ahead and go to that episode to see the procedure on that. Okay, and then looking out at your brake drums, you want to make sure that they're securely mounted, not broken, no bluing from excessive heat, no grease, no oil. Your brake pads, in the case of the truck, again, I have dust covers on here, so I want to make sure that I can see as much as I can. I'll take my key tool and stick it into the brake. Remember the key tool we went over in the last episode? So go ahead and stick it in a hole between the brake shoes. Make sure that I've got sufficient legality on my thickness. I want to make sure that the dust covers are securely attached. I'm also looking on there for any evidence of oil or grease as well. Remember, oil and grease, that's kind of not good for brakes. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? Go ahead and put my tool back here. All right, and I'm also looking at the rims on the insides. Make sure that there's no illegal welds, no non-manufacturer modifications. Make sure that they are securely attached and that there's no bends, dents, breaks, or anything like that. My tire sidewalls, As verbiaged from the last episode, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. Your tire tread, these are drive tires. Now it's a little bit different on a tread for legality, right? Remember, to steer tires, how much did we need? 430 seconds of tread depth. Now that we're getting toward the back of the truck, drive tires and trailer tires need 230 seconds of tread depth. These treads are really good. Everything is good to go. There's no uneven wear, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, no chunks taken out of the tread, no missing parts of the tire. Everything looks good. All right, you also kind of want to get even when you're looking at duals and look around the edge and make sure that there's no abnormalities or anomalies between the two tires. Remember, the tires need to be the same width. You can't have one tire that is smaller or larger than the other one. The tires need to match. They need to be the same. So we need to check all the way around the tire and make sure that all the tread is good to go. You do not want to have different size tires because that puts too much stress on one tire and that messes things up severely. So look even all the way around as far as you can. Obviously, the part that's on the ground, you can't check there, but there's enough of the tire visible to where you can pick up if there's any abnormalities. I'm also gonna look between the duals. Make sure that there is nothing jammed in there. There was one time I saw a driver pull out of a construction site when I was working in construction. He pulled out of a construction site and he had a rock wedged between his tire. I don't think it was his fault really because I think he picked it up after he started moving. But when he got out on the road and he started to accelerate, he threw the rock out of the dual and it actually flew into the grill of my truck. It knocked a hole in the grill of my truck. Now imagine if that went through someone's window. Remember there was a story about a month before I recorded this video, I think it was about a month ago, where a rock did throw up from a tire and it went through the windshield and killed a little girl. I think she was like 7 years old or something like that. Don't hold me exactly to the age or anything, but regardless to say, it killed somebody's daughter. And it's a sad story. You don't want that to be you. So if possible, you want to make sure that you are checking everything. Make sure that you've got nothing wedged up in there. And also when you're checking between the duals, don't forget to make sure that your rims are flush with each other. You do not want to see between the rims at all. Tire pressure, we're going to check it with the tire pressure gauge. Check the valve stem, make sure that there is no cuts or leaks in the valve stem, no damage, it's present, it's accounted for, and it has a metal cap on it. Check my rim, make sure there's no damage, make sure there's no welds, make sure there's no defects, and I always get some crackhead that tells me, well, you said no holes, but I see all kinds of holes in there all the way around. I'm talking about damage holes, guys. Come on. The messages I get, it's kind of cute. My lug nuts are securely attached. There's no evidence of rust coming out, no abnormalities indicating loose lug nuts along the way. Everything is tight. You shouldn't be able to wiggle or move the lug nuts by hand at all. And then my hub seal. My hub seal is securely attached. There's no leaks. All nuts and bolts are accounted for. There's no dents, damage, cracks, breaks. And then if you have a hubcap like this, get it back on there nice and tight. Oop. There we go. All right, so do you remember when I was back down underneath before? Remember when I was talking about order of checklist? Well, the kingpin and the locking jaws just came up on this, but I had already looked at it when I was under there. So I'm gonna go ahead and check that off my list. Now, what am I looking for with the kingpin and lock jaws? I wanna make sure that they are securely attached. They're not broken, not missing. They are closed around the kingpin of the trailer if a trailer is present. If a trailer is not present, it should be open. It should not be shut when there's no trailer on there. So you want to make sure that there's a gap on there to take a trailer if necessary. You also want to look at the pull handle, the release handle, and make sure that it is in the in and locked position if you have a trailer attached. Also, since this is a sliding fifth wheel, you want to make sure that any air lines that are attached to it are in good working order. Make sure that there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. You want to make sure that the platform is securely attached and that there's no missing nuts or bolts. Since it's a sliding fifth wheel, I want to make sure that the jaws that lock the fifth wheel in place are in the secure position. Make sure that they are not loose, and make sure there's no damage to them. I also want to kind of bring my eyes level with the bottom of the trailer. I want to make sure that there is no gap. I want to make sure that I cannot see between the fifth wheel and the trailer at all. The fifth wheel should be completely flush with the trailer for the entirety of the surface. If you can see through there, that's a problem, and don't even bother moving the truck. Just get it looked at right then and there. If you have to call a mechanic out to your location, do so. Another thing on the coupling system, make sure that your handle is in the in and locked position if you have a trailer hooked up. Make sure that the apron on the bottom of the trailer, if you have a trailer attached, make sure that the apron is in good working order. Make sure it has no holes that aren't supposed to be there. There's holes here by design. Make sure there's no damage holes though, no cracks, no bulges. Also, again, eyeball along the surface. Make sure it is flat all the way across and no cracks or breaks. By the way, I want to go ahead and make this recommendation right now. And again, as a disclaimer, any products that I show in my videos are not sponsored. I'm not being paid to say any of this stuff. This is honestly stuff that I bought with my own money, and I feel these are awesome tools to have on the road. So as you can see, I'm holding in my hands two lights here. One of them is a handheld light, and the other one actually goes around my head. I'll start with the one that goes around my head, since that'll enable me to get a hand-free. This is by Nebo. It's a really nice light. It goes up to I believe it's 1,000 lumens. It just fits nicely around your head. It's very lightweight. It's nice to have, and it's comfortable. It's not heavy. And with 1,000 lumens, it's very easy to just wear this around your head and have both your hands free during your pre-trip. If you prefer something more along the handheld variety, there's this bad boy. This is actually a 6,000 lumen light. Both of these are by a brand called Nebo, and I'll go ahead and put a page up on the screen right now for you guys to look at. These lights are very nice. They're very durable. They haven't let me down yet. So when it comes for any and all lighting options to put in my truck for flashlights or headlamps, Nebo is the brand that I go with. I actually discovered it by accident. I was at a truck stop one time and there was a Nebo light on a shelf, and it was like it was a handheld light. It was much smaller to fit in a pocket. It was 1,000 lumen. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. The thing I like about these lights, they're USB rechargeable. You don't need to plug them into a wall or anything like that. So as long as you have any form of USB charger in your truck, which let's face it, most modern trucks now do, you can keep these bad boys charged. This Nebo, the 6,000 lumen, is a USB-C rechargeable, so it charges up pretty fast. Okay, and this one right here, it screws out to expose a micro USB. So both USB rechargeable. I love it. Both flashlights have a great feature that if you hit the button right after each other, it's actually got different levels of lighting. So let's say you don't want that full 1,000 lumens. You want something a little bit softer. Maybe you're working around inside your truck and you don't need glare coming back in your face as intense. Well, you just press the button multiple times and it goes down until you end up turning it off again. The same thing goes for the handheld light. You turn it on, and if you just keep pressing the button, it goes down to a much softer light, and then you just keep pressing it until it turns off. So Nebo brand, really awesome light. I consider it a must-have for working on a truck, doing your pre-trip on a truck. Personally, when I'm doing my pre-trip at night, I just throw on the headlamp and keep it on. And that does two things. It actually does three things. It allows me to keep my hands free while I'm doing my pre-trip. It allows me to see everything that I'm doing. and it allows me to be seen. If I have this light around my head and I'm walking around at night doing pre-trip on my truck, the headlamp actually ups my visibility. So it's also a good safety item as well. All right, everybody, that concludes it for this video, and none too soon too, because some serious clouds are moving in and it's actually supposed to snow today. So I'm getting this footage shot just in time. I will see you on the next video. In the next video, we're gonna be looking at the utility 3000R trailer. We will be inspecting the reefer unit as well as the trailer itself. So we will cover all pre-trip points on that trailer. And then we have one more episode coming up after that. So it's official, you guys are halfway done now. The episode after that is going to be the in-cab inspection. So we'll be getting into the cab, doing our brake inspection and checking out the interior of the vehicle. So look forward to that. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Phelan Diaz signing off, and I'll see you in the next episode.